Well, you're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, author of this book, Consider My Servant Job, available for Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, Epiphany, Lunar New Year's, Kwanzaa. Yeah, I'll take anything, but it's my commentary on the book of Job in the Old Testament. So I published it a couple of years ago, and still on the market, still available for you, and would make a great gift. Now, we're going to be studying the Old Testament in church in 2 years, but get a head start. So this is News with the Eyes of Faith, where I talk about news from the perspective of Christ and the doctrine of Christ. And Christmas is never under assault here. My birthday's in December, so of course I'm not going to mess around with Christmas. Well, as always, our first news item is that Biden is still president, and he's issued 1,500 pardons. So by comparison, Obama issued 212 and George Washington issued 16. You fill in your own comment right there. So the next item is I've been seeing conflicting news stories about this. So Joe Biden cancels or almost cancels more student loans. So this was reported by ABC News. A couple of days ago, announced to cancel $4.28 billion in student loan relief for 55,000 borrowers. Wow, someone's really milking the cow there, aren't they? I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from Brigham Young University, and I paid back my student loan every last cent, every thin dime, every last dollar. And it was the greatest blessing because I was able to develop the discipline I needed to become responsible with my money. Just a reminder, SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, back in June 30th, 2023, said, Biden could not do that, and I did a little bit of adjusting so I don't get that alien eyes. Hey, look, I look really creepy right now. And then this was reaffirmed this year, August 8th, 2024. They released a brief. As always, who's the fascist? And is Biden really making these decisions? Confusocracy, this term I use here. How the White House functioned with a diminished Biden in charge. Wall Street Journal reports. Aides kept meetings short and controlled access. Top advisors acted as go-between and public interactions became more scripted. The administration denied Biden has declined. That's from the Wall Street Journal. That's a bombshell. Now, we all knew it. And when we talked about it, our friends who are on the left said, no, you're just seeing things. No, you hate him. You're just labeling him. And no, we saw it in this Wall Street Journal report. Basically confirms every conspiracy we'd ever heard. Every conspiracy theory we believed has now been confirmed. COVID-19, the lab leak, Biden's brain being soggy oatmeal. Confusocracy. That's the perfect term for the Biden administration. How people function is this there to confuse us. Oh, no, you're not. Deny, delay, defend. Heard of that before? Okay, another news item. How DOGE, yes, Department of Government Efficiency. There's a cryptocurrency called Dogecoin, which has a dog on it. So Dogcoin, Dogecoin. You pronounce it Doge. How DOGE can cut $2 trillion from the federal budget each year. This is published by the Deseret News, and this is interesting because the framing issue with the Democrats is that how do you argue against that? So the Republicans are for government efficiency. So no, we're against government efficiency. Now, how the Democrats will frame that is people are going to get hurt and they're going to lose their job. But is the government's government's just this large welfare agency where it's just supposed to provide jobs for people. Think about the buggy whip industry, the tobacco industry. They're shifting. You always have change in the. Well, here we don't use these anymore because you can get these on your phone. These are old kitchen timers, and some of them they're just not like they used to be. I had one that lasted for over 20 years, and then I got one and it lasted maybe about 6 months. So that hopefully this one will work better. I just use this for time management. It's like the Pomodoro method of time management. But yeah, things change. I'm old enough. We've gone from LPs and 45s to 8 tracks to cassettes to CDs, now to just intangible media where it's just download stuff. Yeah, we need to cut government. And you think about what's going to happen when we free up all that money, where that money's going to go, $2 trillion each year. Where'd that money go? Debt reduction. But, imagine each taxpayer getting $5,000 a refund from the federal government because we've freed up $2 trillion. What would you do with that? Pay down your credit card loans. Maybe your child's going to get a better education because of that $5,000 or whatever the figure comes out to be. The Declaration of Independence. This is I voted one, but it's the American Legion's version. Let's read from this. Where is that? One of the charges levied against King George III was he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and to eat out their substance and to harass them. Doesn't that describe the DMV? Just mindless bureaucracy controlling things, and it's just sucking up all this money. Yeah, that's why the economy is bad, is the government just sucks up everything. Social Security payments. At my work, I have a pension and I have a 401k. Even with the stock market tanking like it is right now, my 401k is double my pension. I'll take both, but free markets is the way to go. Kamala Harris. Cheers. Kamala Harris grapples with her future in a wounded Democratic Party. Madam Vice President, you have a special place in my heart. Jimmy Carter was a horrible president, but he redeemed himself with Habitat for Humanity. Follow President Carter's lead and do something like Habitat for Humanity. Maybe partner with Oprah Winfrey, get these schools where that black men are allowed to go to, white men are allowed to go to, and help people out. Speaking of women in the news, so you had that social media influencer who did 100 Men in One Day, article in the Deseret News about the gender divide, Gen Z and the gender divide. Women are better educated than men. They tend to lean left. And it's like in Lord of the Rings with the Entwives. Now, Lord of the Rings, you remember those talking trees in Return of the in the second movie, The Two Towers? Those are the talking humanoid trees. There's only male trees, and there's a reason why. So what happened is that the male trees started going one direction, the female trees started going, and eventually they lost contact with each other. And that's what's going on right now. You're just seeing this division between men and women. And a little bit has to do with that model I talked about, feelings, fairness, and friends, that women tend to operate on this model I'm using, basing things on feeling, fairness, and friends. Feelings are just a primary, and you feel something, it just is. So when someone has a decision that they base on a feeling, you ask them, okay, well, why do you feel that way? And it just is. It's just something with the thought process, the biochemistry, and someone can't explain the reason, and so that's why they get angry. Another feeling. Pay attention, there's more feelings instead of more logic and more facts, it's just more feelings. They'll get angry with you and then insult you, and that's the friends, the relationship terrorism I talk about. The idea is things just are, I said so, well, says who, social confirmation. Shakespeare has this funny line from The Merchant of Venice, and these two women are talking about why they like this guy, and when the person says, "I have no other but a woman's reason. I think him so because I think him so." Score one for the bard. That's how people operate. I think because I think he's. And it's funny because I was talking with this lady about Hillary Clinton becoming president, and asked why do you think she'd be a good president? And this lady responded, she'd be a good president because she'd be a good president. Just exactly what Shakespeare thought. people are just processing reality differently, and it causes a divide. That's a question when someone wants to leave the church and they cite their reasons, CES letter or social TikTok video. You always think of mine as well as because there's something wrong with the church, or are you processing reality correctly? Think about it. When a person leaves the church, is it because there's something wrong with the church, or because they're processing reality correctly? Think about it. Okay, back to Woman in the News. Martha Hughes Cannon statue in the rotunda. They took out Philo Farnsworth, the guy who invented the Idiot Box, or one of the co-creators of the Idiot Box television. I'm fine with them rotating statues, although I think it's interesting to have two polygamists. Of course, Utah cannot take out Brigham Young, just that. But Martha Hughes Cannon, perfectly fine with that. We can rotate them. You can put them in and out and just rotate them. Then they actually have another statue of Martha Hughes Cannon's down in Provo on Center Street. It's right across the street from the temple. It's a little tiny one, about the size of a Barbie doll. I'm not doing this right. It doesn't work. That's better. Sort of a Barbie doll size statue to her. But I just think it's funny. There's two polygamists. They're in the White House. Of course, politicians having affairs and mistresses, we just won't talk about that. Polygamy, yeah. Okay, bad woman in the news. Britt Cooper is off of Daily Wire. She was a very attractive spitfire and very forcible personality. It's fun watching. It's helpful to get a technique on how to be assertive. But it's funny because you go in there and just this, that, and then pause and do the commercial. I don't have any sponsors. It's just me, you, and the truth. I'm not beholden to anyone except you or myself. Shooter at Wisconsin school was a girl. There's another sister who left the church. Her name is Alyssa Grenfell. And I started watching her a couple of weeks ago. Her videos started popping up. And it's interesting watching her. First thing you notice is that she looks like Miranda Otto, the actress who played Éowyn in Lord of the Rings. That's her probably most famous role. But yeah, there's clear beauty bias there. And you like her because what she says is true, or because you're just looking at a hot chick? In fact, I think one of God's worst curses he can put upon someone is to make them charismatic, good-looking, and rich. Just look at Hollywood. Okay, and with Alyssa Grenfell, when I watch some of her videos, it's interesting her talking, how she was, quote-unquote, the perfect, Maya maid type thing. And I think she's maybe been a victim of the McTestimony Happy Meal effect we get in the church, is where you can get person run through the machinery of the church, all this stuff that's really added to the gospel, these youth programs, girls camps, personal progress, whatever they're calling it now, where you can go through all the motions and regurgitate the correct answers, but you finally upchuck your testimony because there's just no really learning involved. You were just all responding to behaviors. It was behavior control, behavior modification, but without actually getting a true understanding. So you always love her, pray for her. Here's another thing to think about. Let's say you saw a movie that you didn't like. Is it appropriate to go on social media to complain about it and warn people? Yeah. Suppose you had a bad experience at a Elks Lodge, the Soroptimist, the Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Jazzercise Club, your Dungeons and Dragons Club. Is it appropriate to get on social media and talk about that? Well, sure. Suppose you had a bad experience with the church. Is it appropriate to get on social media and talk about that? I'll let you answer that. Woman in the news. Jill Biden's image. Jill Biden's, the first lady's image was used for Trump's cologne, and it's one of the trade-offs with being famous. It's funny because she's looking at him, and you wonder if we're just reading something into it, or Jill Biden knows that her husband's not there. As this Wall Street Journal, we all saw it, and the Wall Street Journal finally confirmed it. Having a husband who's not all there, and then you have someone who's really the alpha male, the alpha chimpanzee of the planet right now, Donald Trump. Yeah. Lord of the Rings, animated Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. That's how you pronounce Rohirrim. It's more of a girl boss movie. It's this template where men don't pay attention to women have the correct answer, sort of a Cassandra story. People just rummaging through the Silmarillion and the appendix in Return of the King. So there you go. I haven't seen it. I'll just stay home and watch reruns on Pluto TV. But that's the last news item. But remember, news isn't what happens. It's cherry picked. It's a product that's crafted, formed, cherry picked, cards stacked, and fed to you, and you're able to manipulate people. We saw this during the George Floyd and with the discussions of the COVID-19. No, it's not a lab leak. Well, actually, it is. Well, if it is a lab leak? Why aren't you telling us the truth so you can deal with the problem? So here's an ethical question. Here's a good scenario for a sort of a political thriller I may write someday, type of Tom Clancy novel. Let's say you have a lab leak and it's starting to erupt. And remember, this is already done with the Andromeda strain by Michael Crichton. So you have a sovereign nation which has this which has a lab leak of a virus. Do you drop an atomic bomb on the city? No, I'm not saying to do it. This is just sort of a book I may write as a political thriller, like a Tom Clancy novel. So I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying this would make a good movie. It's an ethical question we need to confront. So all these women in the news, Russell M. Nelson said, "Let me be very clear about this. If the world loses the moral rectitude of its women, the world will never recover." So think about that when you read news stories about women. So here we're at 16, and it's I'm filming this a couple of days before Christmas. This is on the 21st. Happy spring, happy Viking New Year. This is the natural astronomical New Year. Green. The smart people notice that my name is Kendall Hunter. Kendall is the color of green, and Hunter is the color of green. I met one person who noticed that. And he's at university. Cheers to you, Mr. Green. So, anti-reality. This model I've been talking about, feelings, fairness, and friends. And the issue with it, this is the divide between the left and right, between men and women. And I hope you can take this, what I'm going to say, and I'm not saying this in an accusatory sense, but I need to be honest. This model leads to anti-reality. It's an anti-reality mindset. And so I'm going to talk about something that most of that is probably slid off the radar for most people. So it's about a 3-year-old story, a 4-year-old story. And it's this movie, there's this play called 1820 the Musical. And it was a musical about Joseph Smith's life, 1820, 2020, the bicentennial, the first vision was intent, written by a BYU professor. And it was interesting. I'm not into musicals. I can watch them. I get them. I actually started writing one after my first 2 semester in college, so I don't have anything to get one. It's called Aliens Are Taking Orem Over. Aren't you glad I didn't finish that? But yeah, I got it. It's stuck in my head, so I may do it as a lark when I get some time in the future. But the musical, 1820 the Musical, BYU playwright George Nelson's, and it's one of these ideas where you're supposed to show the human side of Joseph Smith, which is funny because it's all in there. I don't separate Joseph Smith into parts, but it's told from the point of view of Emma Smith. So it's a little bit like the musical Polly that was back in the 1990s. And what bothered me about this was the poster. So it has Emma Smith, and it's depicted Emma with brunette hair. Emma Smith had very dark features, dark eyes, dark hair. Joseph Smith had a lighter complexion, and Joseph Smith III has all of Emma's features. In fact, it looks a little bit like Keanu Reeves. So look at his picture. But the poster had Emma Smith, and she was wearing the Urim Thummim, and then her left eye had sort of this distorted image of Joseph Smith in there. And that kind of bothered me because we don't have any record of Emma Smith ever using the Urim Thummim, and she never mentioned that she did in any of her late interviews. I mean, she was very candid about things, about the translation process and her role as a scribe, but she never used it. So why are they depicting her wearing this when she never used it? And then in the movie, they did, or say the play, sorry, I don't go to plays much. In the play, they cast a blonde woman to play Emma, and she didn't wear a wig, so she's on stage, and Emma Smith is a blonde. Beauty bias again. And then the unusual thing is they cast a black man as Hiram Smith. So they had and so it's just really interesting is what they're doing. And for most members, this would be for at least for me, it was off-putting. It's like, what was this coming from? I mean, you have the racial mix-up, sort of type of reimagining that comes from the musical Hamilton, where they have non-white cast. The only white character is George III. I've never seen it. That's what I report. So the only white person is King George III. What's the message there? But you use that and that's a bit controversial. It's clearly anti-white. And yeah, I'm up to speed on Alexander Hamilton. I minored in political science there, so I was into Alexander Hamilton long before the musical. But casting a black man for the role of Hiram Smith is anti-reality. Emma Smith never used the Irma Thummim. That's anti-reality. She wasn't blonde. Why they cast a blonde actress, and why they advertise her as being a brunette, but cast a blonde actress in the movie or in the play. I apologize for that. That's anti-real. Hiram Smith wasn't black, and that's also anti-real. And it's just basic Gregorian genetics. So they're not even following the science with this casting. But that's how it affects the arts, and the arts affect your perception. So here's the point: when you have feelings, they're localized to one person. They're not a universal. It's each person wearing their own virtual reality goggles, and we just keep bumping into each other. Now, you can share a view within your virtual reality goggles, but once you take the goggles off, you can actually see things as they really are. People decide their own truth. Your focus determine realities. I feel it is true. Things just are. And that's the exact opposite of what you hear with the gospel message. All truth is independent in that sphere in which God has placed it to act for itself. Otherwise, there is no existence. So truth, now we use absolute truth versus relative truth, but that's not the scriptural term. The term is independent truth. It's independent of your perception. It's independent of what virtual reality goggles you happen to be wearing at the time. And if it wasn't independent, there's no existence. Anti-reality. Reality would collapse if truth was subjective and there's moral relativism was true. So how it stays in place is you have a bunch of people who process reality this way, and they have the friends who are the support groups, and it gives the false appearance that it's real due to the majority. Read The Last Christian on Earth. It's a book that's written by a Protestant, but it's written sort of the vein of Screw Tape Letters, sort of a murky, grimy spy thriller, and I recommend reading The Last Christian on Earth. It was earlier titled, the earlier title was, what was it? The Gravedigger Files. So I have the Gravedigger Files version of it, but it's called The Last Christian on Earth, so get a copy of it. So I liked it. We're at 22 minutes, but it's Christmas and you're just trying to get away from annoying family members. How I came up with this model. Part of it is that you just have millions of life experiences. For example, there's a sister missionary, and this has to do with processing language differently. That people who follow this model process language in a different way. And we're talking, as missionaries do, as with my district leader companion. We had two sister missionaries there. And I just happened to say the word funky. And the sister missionary looked at me and said, "How old are you?" I gave my age. Well, you can't say the word funky. Well, isn't that censorship? Why can't I say the word funky? And what does it have to do with my age? Dependent upon, see, that's where truth is dependent on a person, or is it dependent upon reality? Can I say the word funky or not? And it's just funny that someone thought that, but then they had to tell it to me. General conference talk, you'll hear people say they like going to South America because they'll get an abrazo, which is a hug. But it's like, well, wait a second. Abrazo and hug mean the same thing. It's just different words, but they're describing the same thing. Why do you need to say it in a foreign language? Well, they're associating this language with their experiences. So it's culture dependent. They think that an abrazo is different from a hug, but it's not. You're processing language differently. Books, the three books really helped shape my creation of this model. One is by C.S. Lewis, The Abolition of Man, where he talks about, especially the first chapter, about feelings and objectivity. Some people really base things on feeling, and they are subjective. They make emotional decisions. Feelings are not universals; they're person subjective. Compare this to with the first few chapters in Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis's other book, where he talks about people having a disagreement about moral arguments, what's right and what's wrong. And it's sort of the same thing. Is there an objective standard? Is everything subjective? Another one, the second book would be Thomas Sowell's Vision of the Anointed. I had the benefit of reading it about 1 year after it was published. I got a paperback version of it, and it's a great book, Vision of the Anointed by Thomas Sowell, where he talks about this division between the anointed and the benighted, where you just have these two divisions, feelings versus reality. The main book that really shaped my thinking on things was Robert Bork's book, Slouching Towards Gomorrah. And he talks about the left is motivated by two things, egalitarianism and individualism. And you kind of see that applies to my model. In fact, his model may be a little bit better than mine. Now, I think his biggest mistake is that he doesn't mention community in there, because you have the tension between individualism and community. And if you're a fragmented thinking, it works perfectly. If you're compartmentalizing, you can have individualism and community. But in reality, you can't. So egalitarianism, that's my principle of fairness, and individualism, I put that under feelings. You feel like you want to do something. It's the issue of autonomy. People putting themselves as the ultimate authority. I made a promise to myself. Well, what about your promises to God? Isn't God a higher authority? So those are the three books. Speaking of books, just a reminder, this is for sale. You'll love it. Imagine how you'll feel after you buy a copy of this book and start reading it. And if I can get that ring off. Ring, no ring. That I like to talk about the life hack. And this is my success library. First of all, you have a spiritual library. That's the scriptures. Now make sure you have a copy of the scriptures that you read in the Book of Mormon and the other books and the standard works. Shakespeare. Back in the olden days, your personal philosophy was shaped by Shakespeare. You ever notice that Shakespeare's plays, some of them take place in Italy? That's because Shakespeare was bringing the Renaissance to England. Another spiritual book to have is a Book of Virtues by William Bennett. That's the type of lessons we used to study in America that we don't teach anymore. We get these DEI movies. It's the reason why DCEU and the MCU collapsed so suddenly. Once Disney got control of Marvel, they started doing DEI stuff, and it just screwed up the series. So here's the success library proper. The first one is an article by William Drucker called Managing Oneself. And so it's not exactly, I've seen it in book form, but you can find the article on the internet, Managing Oneself. So that talks about how you learn and how you can be useful, about what your contribution is. The next one is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Wait a second. There's an 8th habit. These two books, these are about personal life management, get your life in order. Another one is Natural Laws of Successful Time and Life Management. I Will Learn, get that ring, by Hiram Smith. And he's the founder of the Franklin Planner. And Franklin Quest merged with Covey, so it became Franklin Covey, and so they're all part of the same system now. This is about life management. This is about time management. Another one is called The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker. This is recommended by Newt Gingrich. So some of the examples are a bit old, but the principles are correct. You ever notice how you have to get along with people? How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. How to Get Along with People, How to Motivate People. That's, there's some other ones I don't have the copies with me, is How to Change Anything, Crucial Conversations. Those are good books that I recommend. The 6 Sources, so-called Change Anything, How to Influence People. Another thing to do with is finances. So I'm getting into about a half an hour here. So for finances, the 2 books I recommend is The 5 Lessons a Millionaire Taught Me About Life and Wealth by Richard Paul Evans. That's the Christmas box guy. And then this old boy, the richest man in Babylon. So as a member of the church, you're probably put back by the expression of Babylon. If you can forgive them for using this analogy, this is actually a good book on personal finance management. And this one is also on personal finance. They have a version for woman there, so it has it's the same book with a pink cover, whatever suits your needs. Also, this is more of a symbol. This is a volume of Funk and Wagnall's Encyclopedia from 1979. So make sure you're always learning and getting familiar with background information so you can make good decisions. That you notice people who graduate from college and they seem to have a intellectual vapor lock. They just stop learning because they have the piece of paper. No, never stop learning throughout mortality. Political Library, Federalist Papers. This version has a copy of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Articles of Confederation. Federalist Papers, you said? How about this? The Anti-Federalist Papers. There's an opposing side, so you get both sides of the argument here. Another one is Common Sense by Thomas Paine, one of the books that help articulate the need for the American Revolution and the discussion of tyranny, because we're still having a battle with tyranny. That's what the student loan cancellation is about. That's a form of tyranny. Yeah, you're getting free stuff, but you're still a slave. Another one, Democracy in America by de Tocqueville. Now, you've probably heard people reference these. Some of these pundits and thought leaders will reference these. And they're good reminders to what the American experience was really about. And human nature hasn't changed, and the principles are still in place. Oh, here's the last one, Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. It's interesting reading how this President Wilford Woodruff read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, and he actually, this plan for the virtues, he copied into his journal, so it influenced Wilford Woodruff. Also with Hiram Smith. Where is it? This one. The reason why the Franklin Plan was called the Franklin Plan was because of Benjamin Franklin. Okay, that is your shopping list for Christmas. I'm confident that you will feel wonderful after you get those books and you start reading them throughout the year. You're going to be a better person. You won't be deceived by the Confusocracy. We're at 32 minutes. This is supersized. That's news with the eyes of faith, and Merry Christmas.